Okay, in this video we are going to cover one skill, and that's to describe climographs. Okay, the skill that you need to be able to learn is to identify the type of climate shown in the climograph and describe the characteristics. So basically, tell me what climate is shown and tell me the climate's characteristics. And in a syllabus, there are only 3 types of climates. So we'll just do a very quick recap. Now, from page 76, we have already learned about how come some places are warmer than the other, and that's because of latitude. In the equatorial regions, we have high temperature because the angle of the sun is directly overhead and the sun's ray is concentrated. So in the equatorial regions, it's much hotter. The average mean temperature is much higher as compared to at higher latitudes or even at the polar regions. Now, that's temperature. On the other hand, we've also learned on page 88, okay, how come some places actually experience more rain. So just now we're talking about temperature, now we're talking about rain. We also learned that because of the movement of air across huge areas from Australia to Asia and from Asia back to Australia, this is a large regional wind. Because of this regional winds or winds at the regional scale, as the winds passes through the water bodies, they pick up water vapor, form rain, and because of the wind's direction, it causes a monsoon season in this part of Asia here, which receives more rain in these months, and back in these months it causes rain to fall over Australia heavily in these months. So this monsoon teaches us how come some places receive more rain. Latitude tells us how come some places are much warmer. The average mean temperature is much higher than the rest. Why am I covering this? Because we will start to see some of these come into play as we talk about the climate and the characteristics of the climate. Why do I say so? If you look at the climographs, now this is an example of a climograph. This is an example of a climograph. Now basically a climograph gives you the basic characteristics of a climate, and from there you can deduce what kind of climate is this. So from this graph you can see red line, temperature, blue bars, rainfall. So the two very basic characteristics of any climate is actually temperature and rainfall. Temperature, rainfall. So what we'll do is we'll first start to describe the characteristics of each climate, okay, and from there we will be able to do number 1. Okay, so let's go to the first climate, equatorial. Now, basically in an equatorial climate, whenever we talk about the temperature of any climograph, when we talk about temperature, we always talk about the mean and the range. Of course, we are talking about the annual mean here and the annual range because we are talking about across the entire year. So we need to basically say what is the mean like, what is the range like. Also, since there are blue bars there for rainfall, we need to calculate the total. What's the total rainfall? Add all the bars up, what's the total rainfall? Also, we need to be able to identify the patterns in the rainfall. Okay, what do I mean? Let's go and look at how we would use this structure, this guide, to help us describe the climate shown here. Okay, now the climate shown here, let's look at the red line. The red line gives you temperature. Now, the fastest way to find out about mean is not to add one by one. You can write down all the numbers and add the 12 numbers up, divide by 12, but the fastest way is to look at the maximum and the minimum. Okay, now as long as you can cut the graph into 2 horizontally symmetrically. I need a ruler. No ruler. Okay, this is the maximum, minimum. As long as I cut halfway through here, you realize this line that I just drew would divide the top part of the graph from the bottom part of the graph almost symmetrically. Now, this number here would then mean a very rough estimate of what the mean is. So over here it might be a 27.5 20.2 degrees Celsius mean. Mean of 27.2 degrees Celsius. Okay, now this is the mean. How about the range? The range is just maximum minus minimum. Over here it is, let's say, 28.2 degrees Celsius. Over here it is 26.5 degrees Celsius. So for your range it will be 28.2 minus 26.5. You already know. So basically you have a range. Maybe I should write somewhere. .2 is 1.7, right? Yeah, 1.7, yes. Now you have found the mean annual and the annual range. Now it's time to comment about this mean and annual. So basically I drew up a table to roughly tell you what's considered a high mean, moderate mean, low mean, what's considered a high annual range, moderate annual range, and low annual range. If you look at the mean, anything more than 20 we call it high. I don't know whether you can see it. Okay, anything between 10 and 20 we call it moderate. Anything between 0 and 10 we call it low or small, or anything below 0 because it's very small. Now these numbers are not fixed. Don't take this as hard iron-fisted rules that will apply. And because it's 10.1, therefore we call it moderate, we no longer call it low. It's just a very rough estimate to give us a guide to give general comments about range and mean. So over here, in this case, what's the characteristics for temperature for this graph here? Basically 1.7 range, in terms of range, is definitely between 0 to 10. Okay, it's definitely in low. And since it's just so close to 0, I would say it has a very small annual temperature range of 1.7 degrees Celsius. Now this will already get me 1 mark. This will already get me 1 mark. Now, how about the mean? I found out the mean 27.2. Anything more than 20 we call the mean high. So you would say high annual mean temperature of 27.2 degrees Celsius. Now this in the test will get me another 1 mark already. Okay. Now we have settled temperature. Now how about rainfall? How about rainfall? Now remember, we need to add up the total and to see the pattern. You need to add up all the total. This one no choice, there's no quick method, no shortcut. You got to write down all the numbers and then add out all the numbers. Basically it should add up about 2,200 something. Okay, let's say we calculated, we did all the numbers and all the addition, and it's more than 2,000. So we would say that it has a high total annual rainfall of 2200 mm. Okay, this will be another 1 mark. Now the last one is going to pattern. Now if you look at the pattern, you will realize that basically it's almost the same every month. Maybe the difference is like 10-20, but the difference in 10-20 is not significant when the whole bar is really like 200. It's just 10% change, not a lot. Now, so we would say roughly across the year it remains uniform. Uniformly distributed across the year, and perhaps slightly higher in November and December. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit like messy, but I hope you can see what I'm doing is essentially just trying to apply this temperature mean, temperature range, rainfall total, rainfall pattern into a climograph like this. And if I'm able to do this, this will be easily a 4-mark question in any test, exam, O-level, whatsoever. So this is the table that you should kind of be used to, and from this exercise we can see that equatorial climate basically have small annual temperature range. Temperature remains almost the same in an entire year, and temperature mean is very high in the entire year of 27.2. You have high total annual rainfall of 2,200 plus, and basically the rainfall is uniformly distributed and slightly higher in November and December. So this is the characteristic of a equatorial climate. Okay, so basically what I've just did is to teach you how to describe the characteristics of a climate in a climograph. These characteristics are exactly these things, and I just use this approach to apply onto any climograph. And from there you will see which climograph refers to which climate. Okay, so I think it shouldn't be difficult to go through this now, because we just apply the same approach of temperature mean, temperature range. So remember, this is the highest, the lowest, we cut halfway. Okay, this is the halfway mark. This then would be the mean. That means this will be a 25 degrees Celsius, and remember, anything more than 20 for mean we consider higher. So we will say it has a high annual mean temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. Now 1 mark. Okay, now I found the mean. Now I need to find the range. Just maximum minus minimum. This is about 28 minus 22, 22.5. 28 minus 22.5, that is 5.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, 5.5 degrees Celsius. And basically you have low, okay, low. Okay, temperature all done. Now let's go to rainfall. Basically we just do the total. You add up everything. Okay, let's say we just say it's total, right? Okay, and remember, if the total is about 2,000, we say 2,000 is considered high. So I will say high okay, so that's 1 mark. Now remember, I'm looking at pattern now. Unlike this climate, right, where every month receives about the same amount of rain, in this monsoon months, suddenly we have a lot of rain in these few months here. Okay, and if you recall, the reason is basically because of monsoon lah. Suddenly when the wind blows in this direction, it brings rains, and suddenly we have a lot of rainfall. So this is a monsoon season is marked by a sudden increase of rainfall, and we call this this clustering of high rainfall in these months a distinct wet season. So the distinct wet season starts from May to September. Is it Yeah, May to August lah. Distinct wet season between May to August. Now it can be June to September, May to August. There's no hard and fast rule which month it starts, which month it ends. It differs from place to place, but we take it that it should be fine if we cover a sudden increase or a distinct wet season. So the keyword here is distinct wet season. Now if you want to supplement it with a figure to tell you how much exactly it receives in this month, to illustrate how much more rain it receives in this month as compared to the rest, you can add these bars up. Okay, if you add these bars up, you get 750. Okay, you get 750 mm in these few months. So this is another way, this is the same way to describe a climograph. And from this climograph, we know a monsoon climate basically has high, high mean, small range, high total, but here we have distinct, here we have uniform, distinct, uniform. Okay, now the last one here is a bit different because you have maximum, minimum here. If you divide out, the number here is only 10 degrees Celsius. 10 degrees Celsius gives you a moderate, so we say moderate. Okay, moderate. Mean range is from 18 here, maybe, and 4 degrees. You have about 14 degrees. Moderate. Okay, so moderate mean, moderate range. Okay, and the total annual rainfall is very low. Total annual rainfall is very low. Moderate also. Everything is like moderate. Okay, of course, if you meet with something that is very low, then you just say very low lah. No issue with that. So add. Total is very low. You see the pattern is not like this. It does not have a distinct wet season. It's close to this where it's uniformly distributed across the year. That means every month receives about the same amount of rain. So these are the 4 characteristics of cool temperate. Now you should recognize from this graph, you have 18 degrees here, almost close to 0 degrees here. This is like a 4 season. Okay, that's why you will see that this has the 4 season. 4 distinct seasons. Okay, now in this case, this is 18, this is 14 degrees. Okay, but some cool temperate climate can have up to 21, which is already considered quite high. So don't be confused. Hey, Joe, you say this one moderate, then this one high. Okay, you just read off the graph. Generally, cool temperate should have large. But if you meet with something like that, moderate is fine. Now, why is it large? Just remember it is distinct season. How can temperature be so close to between summer and winter, right? Doesn't make quite good sense. So generally it should be large, but if you meet with a graph that tells you 14, that's not. Okay, just take it as 14. Don't split hairs over it. So basically what I've just gone through is how to describe characteristics. To recap, when I talk about temperature, I talk about the mean annual, I talk about the annual range, and for all of these I have a high, moderate, low. Okay, as for rainfall, I talk about the total. Same thing, I have a high, moderate, low. Now, when I talk about the patterns of temperature, the patterns of rainfall, it could be uniform, it could be distinct wet season. Okay, so this is how we describe every climograph, and from the set of characteristics we can know whether something is equatorial, monsoon, or cool temperate. Okay, you will be given graphs in the exam in O level to identify whether a climate is equatorial, monsoon, or cool temperate. Okay, so as a practice, I would recommend you do this now. Okay, it should be easy what climate this is. You see sudden increase, distinct wet season. You see cut half is about 25, high range, high mean, moderate range, distinct wet season. This is a monsoon. Okay, and you must be able to calculate, describe. Okay, and because you have learned the monsoon, you know how come you have sudden rainfall. Why do you have sudden rain between June and September? The reason is because of monsoon. So when you account for this, you just have to describe what happens during June to September. During June to September will be this. Okay, sorry, with this one, June to September. Okay, describe what happens here, and that is the reason why this place receive a lot more rainfall in these months. Okay, so that's the scale of describing climograph, and from there we just recap a little bit about temperature and rainfall.